What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Ratch Report. It is time to talk about the Toronto Raptors, and I have four burning questions for the Toronto Raptors for this upcoming season. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to the Toronto Blue Jays for making the World Series a heck of a Game 7. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, if you're pumped up for the Raptors, if you're pumped up for the Blue Jays making the World Series, give this a thumbs up. If you want to hit the subscribe button, that'd be appreciated as well. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. So my first burning question here is going to be a lot of questions surrounding the starting lineup, and we're essentially going to break this into subdivisions and talk about the starting lineup in particular to start our video here. And my main concern with the starting lineup on the offensive end anyways is isolation scoring. So when you take a look at this chart here, it gives you the percentage of how good these players are in scoring in isolation. You see Jakob Pertl here, he's shooting 40% in isolation. Emmanuel quickly shot 33.3% in isolation last season. RJ Barrett shot 42.1%, and Scotty Barnes shot 41.7% when going ISO last year for the Toronto Raptors. And Brandon Ingram shot nearly 49% in isolation in the limited games he played last year with the Pelicans. Now, for those that are excited about Brandon Ingram, you have absolutely every reason to. This gives the Toronto Raptors a player that they haven't had in quite some time, an isolation score that can get you buckets, that can hit jump shots, that can hit mid-range shots, can shoot three-point shots, and ultimately this will help the Toronto Raptors, but this still does not excuse the lack of shot creation from the other players in the starting lineup. So while it's great that Brandon Ingram will do a lot of the shot creation, but what happens when teams start to double him? What happens when Brandon Ingram is scoring 22, 23 points a game and teams start to kind of work around Brandon Ingram to stop him? Who else is going to step up and really take that next leap? That is going to be my big concern for the Toronto Raptors. And unfortunately, even with the style of play that the Raptors play, which is a lot of ball movement, I do believe this is going to hurt the Raptors a lot. And I'll talk about my next point here in just a moment, but it is going to be difficult because once Brandon Ingram gets doubled, is this going to force Scotty Barnes to, try and go isolation? Or are we just going to have Emmanuel quickly shooting up a lot of three-point shots? And unfortunately, I do believe that to be the case because, look, RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, their shot creation ability is decent, not great, but majority of their points do come off when they're cutting or when they're in transition. So I do wonder how the Raptors offense is going to look at times when Brandon Ingram is double teamed or if he's not shot creating. Who else is going to really step up and take that focal point of the offense and really step it up and make Raptors' life a lot easier on the offensive side. Now, my next concern here with the Toronto Raptors starting lineup is three-point shooting. So when you take a look at the starting lineup here, Jakob Pertl, of course, does not shoot any three-point shot. He shot 0.01. It was that one three-point shot he hit last season, but majority of his career, he doesn't shoot three-point shots. You got RJ Barrett shoots 35% from the three-point line. Brandon Ingram shot 37%. Emmanuel quickly shot 37% from the three-point line. And Scotty Barnes shot 27% from the three-point line. Now, when you look at the chart here, you may think, well, we've got three players that are shooting over 35%. That is not such a bad thing overall. But again, when we talk about offense, this is where it's going to hurt the Raptors a lot because most teams, when you're talking about floor spacing, they normally just have one player in their starting lineup that can't shoot the three-point ball really well, especially in modern NBA. You need to be able to space the floor to make it a lot easier for guys like RJ Barrett, for a lot of guys like even Scotty Barnes to attack the basket because there's not as many defenders in the paint. And I'm not overreacting, guys. This is not a reaction video to what I saw in the preseason, but I've had my concerns with the Raptors overall on the offensive side anyways, with how they're going to be producing points. And this is going to be my second point here, which we're talking about is it's going to be tough. And we saw a few plays versus the Boston Celtics when, there was some shot creation difficulty for the Toronto Raptors on the offensive side, at least outside of Brandon Ingram, of course. And just overall, the floor spacing was downright atrocious. And this is where it makes it difficult for a lot of players like Scotty Barnes to really excel and really get it going on the offensive end. When you're trying to hit mid-range shots and you got Jakob Pertl standing 5 feet from you, and then you got RJ Barrett who's trying to cut, who's 15, 10 feet from you as well. And now all of a sudden you have two or three defenders on you, and it makes life so much harder for the Raptors overall, not just Scotty Barnes, just to be able to score in the paint. And of course, if a team is already not shooting great from the three-point line, well, I mean, you can only guess how the offense is going to look. And of course, with respect to RJ Barrett, him shooting 35% isn't really, Is he a really great three-point shooter? You got to ask yourself, not really. That's not really a part of his game. And frankly speaking, do you really want RJ to be camping out on the three-point line and being the floor spacer? If it's Emmanuel quickly, it's a little bit more justified. It's a little bit more understandable, but it is going to be a struggle that the Raptors are going to have to figure out as the season progresses. And my third concern here with the starting lineup is on the defensive side now. When we talk about defensive ratings, Jakob Poeltl obviously is one of the better defenders in the starting lineup. We know Scotty Barnes is great as well, but the defensive ratings are as it goes. Jakob Poeltl has a defensive rating last season of 110. Emmanuel quickly has a defensive rating of 117. Scotty Barnes has a defensive rating of 112. Brandon Ingram last season, again, he was with the Pelicans. He had a defensive rating of 121, and RJ Barrett had a defensive rating of 116. So similarly to when we talked about the Raptors on the offensive end, and normally when you look around the NBA, normally there's only about one bad shooter in the starting lineup. Similarly, with a lot of teams, you either have one or two bad defenders in the starting lineup, and you better be very, very talented offensively to make up for your lack of defense. And when we talk about the Raptors as a whole, Jakob is great, Scotty's great on the defensive side, but what about Emmanuel quickly? He's obviously shown some effort of, putting in a lot more effort, being, a little bit of a better defender this season, at least in the preseason, and, RJ Baird as well at times. But this is where it becomes very, very challenging, especially considering the positions they play. Emmanuel quickly plays the point guard position. And if even RJ Baird, you go in a pick and roll and he's guarding the point guard, he's not a great defender. And then you got Brandon Ingram, who's a small forward for the Toronto Raptors. You could argue possibly two of the most important positions, the shooting guard, the small forward position, where you really need your players to be great defensive players. This is where it makes it very, very challenging for me. And it raises a lot of questions as to what this team is going to look like on both ends of the floor. If you're not spacing the floor, if you don't have a lot of shot creation, and on top of that, you have three subpar, or you could even say below subpar defenders, that makes life a living hell on both ends of the floor for a team that is looking to make the playoffs, but for a team that's also invested a lot of money into this team. So again, for those that are wondering, the average defensive rating for the league last season was 112. So again, this is going to be very, very challenging, and we'll see what the Raptors do in this upcoming season. And our last question here for the Toronto Raptors is going to be surrounding Darko, because his first season here, there was a legitimate excuse. He took on a team that was in the middle of trading a handful of players, and you were kind of retooling around Scotty Barnes. So he was trying to kind of juggle the starting lineup, trying to figure out what everyone's role is. Last season, there was a lot of injuries, and let's be honest, it was a rebuilding season for the Toronto Raptors. They were trying to tank at the end of the year, and you were naturally going to lose a lot of games. But this is his third season. This is no longer a head coach that is going into his first season as a rookie. This is no longer he's only in his second year. Let's give him another season. He's going into his third season where he will be judged the hardest, and there will be a lot of question marks as to how he's going to make this work and his rotations in particular. He did say he wants to play 11 or 12 guys, but naturally, when you are trying to win in the NBA, you have to go around 9, 10, 11 players deep. I understand that he is excellent, and I would absolutely agree with everyone when we talk about his player development. He is an excellent, excellent coach when it comes to developing players on an individual basis. But now, can he put the puzzles together to make the whole picture complete? This is going to be a very, very, very hot seat for Darko during the whole season, because if the Raptors do not see success, yes, there are many, many flaws with this roster, but ultimately the head coach gets a lot of heat for how his team is producing. And you can be sure if the results do not produce, or at least if the Raptors don't look as good as advertised on paper, as much as how much they're spending on their salary as a whole, there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding Darko and his future with the Toronto Raptors. But this is it for Darko. There's going to be a lot of questions with his bench rotations. There's also going to be questions about if he's going to change up the starting lineup at some point, because I personally strongly believe this when I say this. The starting lineup is not very good, and it doesn't really complement each other's style of play, but also on some of the weaknesses that each players have as well. So this is going to be a tough year for Darko, because he's being tasked to obviously have a lot of success with the Toronto Raptors, and he is absolutely going to be judged on whether or not he's going to be the future head coach for the Toronto Raptors. So these are my four burning questions for the Toronto Raptors. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the Raptors will eventually be able to work through some of these issues. What are your concerns with the Toronto Raptors? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and that will be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will be on vacation, so unfortunately, you won't be seeing any more videos for at least a week. I will be away, but I will be rooting for the Raptors from afar. And again, let's go Raptors. Obviously, you wish them the best of success. And most importantly, you want the Blue Jays winning the World Series as well. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.